Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
And so we're doing the second of the 3 Bible studies for summer. The books haven't come yet, so I'll have copies. So.
It's short.
Is it? Good. Okay,
Yeah,
I had to
you're at
leave.
the
So
last
we're good.
Yes, I need to see if I could see it on there. We didn't have it even,
That's where I got this.
Yeah, me too.
That's where I got
I know.
this. Yeah.
It was kind of hard. I
I
kind of
just
had
printed out
trouble
extra
finding
copies
it,
for
but.
well, thank you,
Yeah.
because I tried to get to it and it had May and June, but it didn't have the July.
Different.
Oh, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I went around
Okay,
kind
so
of
should we
finding it.
start with prayer?
Yeah.
Gracious God, you
Called us into being out of love. Stand with us as an expression of love, and promise us forgiveness, redemption, and peace as a promise of love. Help us to trust your love and to share it far and wide. Amen.
Verses John 2:5. Do whatever he tells you to. Well, okay.
It's pretty direct.
That's pretty to the point, right? Of course, it's kind of figuring out what the telling is, right?
Yeah.
Like, is it really God? You really want me to do this? Okay, I'll start. So, I was first exposed to the formal pursuit of women's studies when I was in college in the late 1980s. That we even needed an academic focus on women's studies switched on a light bulb for me. The fact that there wasn't a separate major dedicated to men's studies was also a revelation to me. I realized that the prevailing standard, the norm, was the life, experience, and perspective of a male. I began to see how women's lives and experiences and perspectives and ways of knowing were regularly rendered diminutive by society. Okay. For example, women aren't actors. We are actresses. We are heroes, but heroines. We aren't drum majors. We are majorettes. We and our history were, and often still are, hidden under the term mankind, rather than being equally included in the words such as humankind or humanity. Even many of us women bristle at the idea that diminutive terms render us secondary or subservient to the masculine norm. Yet we see how words do in fact shape our understanding of the baseline, when just for fun we imagine using the feminine terms as a normative. Try calling George Clooney and Ryan Reynolds actresses or Captain America a heroine. Now try imagining Neil Armstrong saying that's one small step for a woman and one giant leap for womankind. Then too, in other ways, we and our work have been rendered as less important. And as a society, we've adapted to and accepted this. Take, for example, the distinction between art and crafts. Okay. Museums certainly hold artwork by women. Georgia O'Keeffe, Anna Ancher, is that how you say that? And Amy Sherald are 3 examples. But by and large, art, such as painting, sculpting, and architecture, has been the province of men. For most of us, it is far easier to produce a list of famous male artists than female ones. Crafts, however, such as quilting, knitting, felting, embroidery, scrapbooking, and doll making, are somehow seen as less examples of art, or even another category entirely. Yet it should not go unnoticed that these arts that are rendered crafts are not only the province of women, but the province of the well-being of the home and family. You see, the quilts provide comfort. Knitting and felting provides clothing. Embroidery provides delight. Doll making provides hours of imaginative play for children. Scrapbooking preserves family memories. Women have a remarkable knack for combining creativity with critical, important work. We bring things into being that are necessities, and we do it with flair. The Gospel of John provides a framework for empowering women to bring things into being as representatives of the God who also brings things into being. We don't have to, nor ought to, wait passively for the work of God to happen, but rather we can, in fact, and ought to, see ourselves as instruments of God called to do God's work. And if anyone knows that there's work to be done, it's women. So let's get to work. What are some ways that you are creative? What do you think? Ways that you are creative.
Sometimes in baking and cooking.
Yeah, baking, cooking, quilting,
Quilting for sure.
sewing, stitching,
Writing.
writing. I kind of think we're creative in Bible study too. I kind of like to think we are.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we see things differently. We tend to see things differently than men do.
Yeah, for sure.
Share briefly about one or more of your creations of which you are particularly proud.
Besides children.
As our children, yes. Well, I'm thinking they're thinking of more short-term creations. Perhaps, I don't know. We'll see.
Creations.
What are you especially proud of? See, for me, it's my music. Anytime I accomplish a piece or play a piece or sing something.
Absolutely.
Honest and tons of quilting and stitching and.
Yeah.
Gardening.
Gardening, that's a good one.
Oh, that's a good one. Get
Yeah.
out there and,
Digging
well,
in
up
the
to,
dirt.
you gotta plant your flowers. You gotta be creative, you know, are you gonna plant them here, or are you gonna plant your flower here?
Yeah, just throw it in the ground, we're good.
Yeah, that's sometimes what I just do, and I just.
Yeah,
if
we're
it-
good.
if it
Just throw it in
grows,
there.
it grows. And if it doesn't grow, oh well, you know. Maybe
Kind of what I
it's
did with
supposed
my daylilies last year. I hope those daylilies that took out of my smaller garden.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, I have nowhere else to put these, so I just threw them out in the ditch. I said, okay, guys,
You're on your own.
they're still there.
Awesome.
Not much creativity there. Anything else? What are you proud of, Alice? She's thinking awfully hard.
Not in school.
Well,
with the
that's what I was
kids.
thinking, you know, my
Teachers have to
profession,
be.
Yeah.
helping kids learn,
Yeah,
because
they
you
have
were
to
the
be.
reading kind
Reading,
of thing,
yeah.
you know.
Okay. What about you, Marcia? Your cakes are phenomenal, I think. They're amazing.
Yes, those cakes, those
Cakes.
And
But you still should be proud of them. What about you, Marlene?
I don't know. Yeah, music for sure, but
baking, you bake some scrumps.
reading.
yeah.
Do you do
I read a lot, but that's not as creative.
creative?
But-
I think repurposing things. I like to see if you can repurpose. I do.
Yeah.
I like to see if you can
Yeah.
repurpose
Yeah,
things
for
into
sure.
something different.
For sure. I like being creative and brainstorming and coming up with ideas, you know, and working,
Okay.
collaborating with people, and I always enjoyed that, like when we had to do, you know, like for chronic rehab I used to do a lot of teaching with groups with stress and different things like that, you know, and how many, and in-service work. And always wanted to figure out a different way to do it so it wouldn't be boring. You know, just something a little different so they don't have to listen to the same thing every year. And
Well, or what I find interesting is, like like tonight I started 2 new kids on piano lessons. And it never ceases to amaze me how kids' minds work.
yeah, they're not all alike, are they?
Well, and
Yeah.
they think, you know, we try to make kids all alike,
Yeah.
and they're not.
Mm.
They all learn differently. They're all capable of learning, but they all see the world differently. You know, the one little girl, she's the oldest of the 2, and the little boy, he's the younger. You know, he's very, you know, coming right inside the line and doing everything just so, and beautiful work. And she's over there just doodling on everything. Then she starts copying all the pictures that she sees on the page. And she's doing a great job. I mean, it's like, wow, you're really good at that.
Yeah.
Those are things I kind of file away for the future. You know, she's not so good at staying within the line. She's more, I want to do this,
Detailed,
I want to try
creative.
that, I want to do this, and he's more, yep, I'm writing the lines and I'm going to do it just like you're supposed to.
I used to call them
And they're both great kids.
absolutely.
You know, it's just the way they are. So, yeah. All right, so it looks like we're at John 2, 1 through 12. right?
John 2.
I think that's the ready. Isn't it?
Again,
Again, yeah, is it again? Okay, well, just in case we didn't get it the first time, or the first 30 times, right? Alright, are you going,
Yeah.
we're gonna get the, Bibles.
Sometime I'm gonna bring my other Bible, so it's
Okay.
happening.
Alright.
3 days later, there was a wedding in the village of Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there. Jesus and his disciples were guests also. When they started running low on wine at the wedding banquet, Jesus' mother told them, "You're just out of wine." Jesus said, "Is that any of our business, mother?"
I love that, mother.
Mother, yours or mine? This isn't my time, don't push me. Just like a kid.
Back off, lady. Back off, lady.
She went ahead anyway, telling the servants, "Whatever he tells you, do it." 6 stoneware water pots were there, used by the Jews for ritual washings. Each held 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus ordered the servants, "Fill the pots with water," and they filled them to the brim. "Now fill your pitchers and take them to the host," Jesus said, and they did. When the host tasted the water that had become wine, he didn't know what had just happened, but the servants, of course, knew. He called out to the bridegroom, "Everybody I know begins with their finest wines, and after the guests have had their fill, brings in the cheap stuff. But you've saved the best till now." This act in Cana of Galilee was the first sign Jesus gave, the first glimpse of his glory, and the disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum along with his mother, brothers, and disciples, and stayed several days.
It says 3 days, ours says 2.
This is several.
I thought it started out
Mine
3
says a
days.
few days.
The first
Oh,
verse.
the first verse.
The first verse. Well,
3
remember,
days later.
weddings in those days lasted like
Yeah.
a week long.
Yeah, but I'm just curious
Yeah.
as to
This
why.
is on the
Because
third
ours
day
said
here.
2 days later.
Oh, yeah, ours says 2
Oh, really?
days.
Mine
Yeah,
says
2
2
days.
days.
Then he
Third
went
day.
down.
Oh, yours
Two
says
days.
on mine
Okay.
says 2 days later.
Okay. Ours says 2 days later.
Okay,
It's
so,
invitation.
Yeah.
Marcia, you wanna go next?
Last month, we tackled this passage by way of the now, found in verse 10. Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now. We're going to revisit that text, taking into account that now, but considering Jesus' mama in verses 1 through 5. It's easy to read scripture in a very serious way, one that seems to carry the appropriate solemnity. But in fact, there's a lot of humor in scripture. This passage is an example of
I
that.
never knew that before.
We don't know whose wedding this is. We do know that weddings at that time were not trivial events, and often the celebration would last a week. In this text, the meaning of the third day is not entirely clear. Even for someone bad at math, counting the passing of days mentioned within John 1 doesn't add up to this being the third day of the story. Maybe it refers to the third day of the wedding festivities. If so, it's no wonder that the caterers, so to speak, have run out of wine. What is also not clear is why Jesus' mother is there. Perhaps she, in a typical role for a woman then or now, is there as a helper, or perhaps she is there as a guest. What is clear is that she is on wine detail. When the jugs run dry, she does what needs to be done. She tells her son.
She must like her wine, maybe.
Mothers have a habit of assuming that their children are the best, the most, the only ones capable of fill in the blank. Mary is not alone in this regard, but in this case it seems as if her hunch is right. She goes to Jesus and says, "They have no wine," with the clear intent that he will do something about it. His response is less than obliging. "Woman," he responds, "what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." First, initially, it's a little off-putting that he calls her woman. But as it turns out, this seems to be a common way he refers to her. Look at John 19:26, when he is on the cross and addresses her. Perhaps it is even a term of endearment. My husband, in fact, will look at me and use that term with a grin and a twinkle, and with no trouble at all gets away with it. As for the "what concern is that to you and to me" portion of the verse, it's possible that Jesus is indicating that the lack of wine is a problem, but not theirs. This would imply that Mary is there as a guest rather than as a helper. And anyway, Jesus goes on to say it's not the time for him to show his stuff. My hour has not yet come. But here's where the text turns a bit funny. Mary's response? It's not to demur. It's not to acknowledge that he has a point. It's not to go back to the party, muttering under her breath. Instead, she turns to the servants and says, do whatever he tells you. I like to imagine what happened between Jesus and his mama in between those two moments. I invite you to do the same. Where I tend to come out is that the two of them are having a mama-son stare down, after which Mary turns to the stewards and tells them to do what she knows, and now her son knows he will tell them to do. In this flash of time, it's as if Mary is saying, Jesus, how about that hour that hasn't come yet? It's now. As womanist theologian Dr. Will Gaffney writes, in John 2, Mary, the mother of Jesus, prompts him to reveal himself in the miracle that is understood as the formal inauguration of his public ministry, verse 3. In so doing, she leaves us with profound instructions for our Christian faith in verse 5. Do whatever he tells you. Mary is good at saying three things. The need that Jesus can meet it, and that this need must be met now, immediately, rather than waiting for a later time.
See, if they would have told the servants to do that, they'd say, but is he crazy? You know, but she says, do whatever he says.
Yeah, but I think it's more like, you know, we probably all have those stare downs with our kids. I told you, you're going to go clean your room.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. It's more like that. Yeah, you are, kid, and you're gonna do it now, and don't argue with me. I don't care that you're 30. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so has your view of this reading changed?
A little, I never thought of it as being,
Funny.
yeah. It's like-
It is kind of funny though when you think about it. Mother.
And woman, I mean, you know, from his
Yeah.
man from the womb, you know, that's where the word woman has
Right.
come from, so in that language, maybe that was an endearment that way.
Down on mine, it says, dear woman,
Oh, there you go.
dear woman, why do you involve me?
Yeah,
So, I mean,
yeah,
depending on the interpretation, or how it's worded,
yeah.
it can make a
You
difference.
kind of wonder, because you have to remember the Gospels were, you know, they were written down years later.
Yeah.
You know, so they were all stories that, and you wonder if maybe this was a story that Mary told. I almost wonder if it was a story that she told.
Yeah, yeah.
Just from the perspective of, yep, I told him to do it.
Tell him
and-
to do it.
Because he was a good boy. No, but you gotta kind of wonder if
Yeah,
that's,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, that's
because it doesn't really talk about him having disciples yet, I don't think. Does he have disciples yet? I can't remember. Yeah, he does, because he called the disciples in the last part of the chapter,
His
but
disciples are invited to the wedding.
Right.
Followers do
maybe they were there, maybe they were watching. But it doesn't sound like, it sounds like it was more intimate between the
It's
two
just
of them.
that Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. It's good.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know, it's just kind of interesting to think of it. So consider a time when you saw a need before someone else did. How did that make you feel and what did you do?
This is funny. Remember when they had the garden, the flower garden up there by the railroad tracks? Juanita's flower
Juanita's,
garden.
yes.
Oh, I remember that. It was such a mess. I thought, okay, I'm stopping and I'm gonna weed this thing. So I got it about half weeded and I just left all the weeds piled there. Next time I come to town, they're digging it all up and I saw a need, but
Okay, well, I guess you inspired them.
Good.
no, I think that was
I
the
think
plan. And I just thought, oh, that just looks so chill.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna weed. I've been weeding, I must have been weeding out at the care center or something.
Yeah.
That day, and I thought, oh, I'll just work on this too, and it was a mess.
It's just like if you see someone, you know, I think they're gonna be faint and bring them a chair.
Yeah.
Or, you know, things like that, or if they're a little
Don't
wobbly.
you feel like we do that?
Absolutely, all the time.
Like when you see people who need help and you just go out. Just do. Yeah. So what can we learn from Mary and Dr. Gaffney about our call to address urgent, pressing needs now?
It's easy to put things off.
Yeah.
That
For
is-
sure.
Whatever it is, visiting somebody, you know.
Things that we do not do, you know, in our profession. That's a big compartment for me, for sure.
It's way easier to put things off than this, just take care of it.
Some people are really better at that. I really admire them. You know, nobody's perfect, but there's some people that will put you to shame,
Yeah.
put me to shame.
I'm getting lazier and lazier at night. I know when the kids were little, I was big into getting everything done before they went to bed. So that when we got them all into bed, we had at least a couple hours at night to just relax. You know, maybe figure out what the next day's gonna bring or whatever. Then, as I got older, I found myself working later and later and later into the night trying to get stuff done. I've kind of gone back to, you know, it's like when 7 o'clock hits, it's like, okay, my brain is done. Now
Yep.
it's really hard to, it's like, oh, I should do this, oh, I should have done that, oh, I should have done
It'll
this.
be there tomorrow.
It'll be there.
I'll feel
Yeah,
better in
It
the
takes,
morning.
it just takes longer to do
What
that.
was our
I
Bible,
think
what was
so.
our Bible study last? Wasn't that you need to take care of yourself?
Yes, yes, so
There's-
there's kind of a
That's right.
balancing act that
It's a
we
balance.
play, yeah, it's kind of a hard one. Okay, so we've got John 13:20 to 23. Do you want it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to make a slide for it.
Okay, you can do this.
Excuse me.
13.
Sorry.
Sorry. Quite right.
Okay,
He was being especially annoying, sorry.
I tell you the truth, whoever accepts anyone I send also accepts me, and whoever accepts me also accepts the one who sent me. After Jesus said this, he was very troubled. He said openly, I tell you the truth, one of you will turn against me. The followers all looked at each other because they did not know whom Jesus was talking about. One of the followers sitting next to Jesus was the follower Jesus loved. Simon Peter motioned to him to ask Jesus whom he was talking about. That follower leaned closer to Jesus and asked, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, I will dip this bread into the dish. The man I give it to is the man who will turn against me. So Jesus took a piece of bread, dipped it, and gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered him. Jesus said to him, the thing that you will do, do it quickly. No one at the table understood why Jesus said this to Judas. Since he was the one who kept the money box, some of the followers thought Jesus was telling him to buy what was needed for the feast, or to give him something, or to give something to the poor. Judas took the bread Jesus gave him and immediately went out. It was night. When Judas was gone, Jesus said, now the Son of Man receives his glory, and God receives glory through him. If God receives glory through him, then God will give glory to the Son through him, and God will give him glory quickly. Jesus said, my children, I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and what I told the Jews, I tell you now. Where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new command, love each other. You must love each other as I have loved you. All the people will know that you are my followers if you love each other.
Remember that.
Jesus handing the bread?
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't either.
the questioning thing. One of them, the disciples whom he loved, were carrying next to him, Simon Peter motioned to him. I don't remember any of
I
that.
don't remember that at all either.
No.
I thought it was just me.
The last 30 years. Okay, Alice, you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Love is complicated, regardless of gender, but love, for those identifying as women, the characteristics and implications of love can be even cloudier. Many of us were taught that love means you ought to lose ourselves for the sake of others. We sacrifice ourselves for our spouses, children, and other relationships, even to our own detriment. But the Gospel of John corrects this notion. Admittedly, John has a bit of a fixation about love, but this leads him to a robust, healthy notion of it. In John 13 passage, we hear a distinct now, a declarative statement that anchors Jesus' crucial announcement in the immediate moment. When Judas had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him." Jesus' use of now is no mere interjection, but rather a pin to mark an eschatological
Yeah, that's a hard word.
event. Judas has just left to betray Jesus. Now there is no turning back. Now Jesus knows how his next day will unfold. What's so interesting is that he yokes this betrayal to his glorification. His dying on the cross is precisely what will lead him to resurrection, a victory over death that is not just his to hoard, but rather his to share with everyone. It's no coincidence that Jesus answers a question from Simon Peter in this way. Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus answered, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow me afterward." Jesus says that Simon Peter can't follow him now to his death on the cross, but afterward, we can. We will be empowered to follow Jesus because death will no longer be a threat. We will be freed to love our neighbor radically. In between these two messages, verse 31 and verse 36, Jesus helpfully clarifies what following him looks like: creative, life-giving love. "I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Here John uses the Greek word for love, agape, the same word he uses to describe Jesus' love for us in other passages of this gospel. If time allows, read these additional passages that show Jesus' love for us. Should we start reading those?
Sure.
Okay.
Well,
First one?
sure.
I-
I can read it.
oh,
What
okay.
are you doing?
Okay.
Okay, John 10. "I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason the Father loves me, because I laid down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down out of my own accord. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father." And John 14, do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. And then John 15, "You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father." And John 17, "I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world." And then John 17:23, "I in them and you in me, that they may become completely one, so that the world may know that you have sent me and have loved them even as you loved me." Okay, wanna go ahead, Molly?
John wants us to know that we are all worthy of God's love. That message alone is a helpful corrective to the all too often absorbed idea that we as women are most worthy when we love others more than we cherish ourselves. Still, John is clear that we are understood only by way of our connection to others. The same point can be made about healthy love. As New Testament scholar Dr. Gail O'Day writes, the Christian community is known by how much its members love one another, not by how much they deny themselves. And then there's Omid Safi, a professor of Islamic studies at Duke University, who has studied the work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., as well as how love and justice connect. In his 2016 baccalaureate speech at Colgate University, Safi advised all those concerned about justice. At home and globally, we need you. We need you not to be successful. We need you to be great. Greatness as measured by the extent to which you are willing to put your love into the service of others. Here is the secret no one tells you about justice. All that we mean by justice is love. When love comes into the public arena, that's all we mean by justice, that we want for other people's babies the same thing we would want for our own babies. So let me leave you with this. You are loved. If you are sitting here, somebody has loved you. Somebody has sacrificed for you. Reach back to them and extend the circle of love. Welcome people into that circle of compassion. Do you remember what Jesus identifies as the mark of his followers? That mark is love. It exists because we are loved. As a womanist theology and the teachings of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. both emphasize, love is creative. Love can see what is not yet there and call it into being. Love is a force that perceives a lack of life and seeks to create the conditions for it. Love is bold. Love is audacious. Love is unrestrainable. Love identifies who we, followers of the crucified and risen Jesus, are in this very moment. Now.
Have you ever felt like your capacity to love is a superpower? Certainly was for Jesus. Wasn't it? I can think it is.
Yeah. You see stories every once in a while, on TV that it's just the power of love and miracles happen. I mean, and not changing water to wine miracles, but
When you're saying that, it reminded me of the little boy who, he had gotten, I don't remember how he got the money, I mean, whether he found it or whatever, but he asked his grandpa to take him to McDonald's, and he bought sandwiches, and they went to the area where the homeless people were, and he was handing out these sandwiches, telling everyone, "I love you,
yeah.
I love you," and just, he was loved, and he knows that he's loved,
Yeah.
and just wanted to share that. But I was glad that they put something like that on the news.
Yes, yeah.
When they did that.
Do you see love as a creative force? And do you see yourself as a creative force?
Well, I think, like with the food pantry, that was certainly a creative project, done out of love.
Or craziness? One or the other.
Well, there were some crazy
There's a fine line
moments.
between love and craziness, isn't
There
there?
is sometimes, that's right.
There's a
Right.
fine line
Where
there.
have I gotten myself into moments?
Oh, yeah.
But it really makes you aware of how many people are in need. That don't step forward, and we would not know otherwise, and they just go on with their life.
And I think what I'm most proud of with the food pantry is that we've given people an opportunity to be disciples.
Yep.
To understand what it means to give unrestrained, to give without judgment. To understand what that means, and understand what that means to someone who's been judged all their life. maybe by the way they look, or the way they talk, or the way
But
they
they
learn.
come in there and, you know, when I walked in the other day to talk to Darwin, and they're sitting at the table, you know,
Oh,
and
yeah,
they're
there's
just,
a lot of laughter there,
There's
there's
a
a lot
lot.
of happiness there. And when new people walk in, they're still taken aback by, you know, this is a fun place to be. You know, they recognize it as a good place to be, a safe place to be, where they don't have to put on airs, they don't have to have an excuse to be there, they just come. You know, and,
But wasn't that a creative project?
oh yeah,
Huh?
many times.
Yeah.
Like, where are we gonna put all this stuff?
Seriously. Maybe.
Like the other day, I have to tell you, Dollar Fresh in Hampton contacted me, they have a bunch of, they're discontinuing their food club line of food. And, they can get it at a really low discounted rate because they're trying to discontinue it all at the warehouse as well. And so they contacted me and said, is there some of this stuff you want for the food pantry? We'll give it to you cheap. It's like, okay. So I mean, he had 3 pallets of stuff to go through, and not just, you know, not just like this high pallets, they were stacked way over my head. And I'm like, okay, I said, and I couldn't go Thursday, I couldn't go Friday, so I happened to be in there Saturday just getting stuff. And so I just checked to see if he was there, so I said, well, do you have time? Oh, yes, I have time. I said, okay. So I gotta get this stuff out of here. Like, okay, so I went back there, and we probably spent, I don't know, half an hour sorting through stuff, and then I realized that, you know, I'm gonna need a pickup to get this stuff back to Sheffield, because there was a whole pallet stacked up above my head.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so I texted Gene really quick, and I said, Gene, what you doing? He said, do you have time to come down? Yeah, I got time to come down. So I had this pallet stacked over my head, and then a whole nother, like, thing. And I got up in the pickup, and they're throwing stuff on. I'm stacking it all because we're never gonna get this all in there. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
watch me.
Oh, yeah.
Gene, did I mention I used to do layaway for Walmart? Come on, I can get this in here, piece of cake. This is not a problem. Yeah, I had it all stacked nicely neat all the way to the back, and we had everything in there. Yes, I cannot believe you did that.
Gene said that, or who?
Gene
Or
said
the-
He was so funny. He was so funny. Yeah, there are more creative ways that I'd like
Yes,
to.
there are.
Yes. Okay, have you seen Jesus' commandment to love as a commandment to be involved in the workings, politics, suffering, and injustices of the world? Well, I would hope so. Whatever they may be, right? Okay, we got a little bit to go here, right? Not much. Well, that's kind of short, wasn't it? I
A
love
lot of
this.
questions.
I love this reading. It's really good. They should do that like at a wedding. Right?
Yeah.
Be great for a wedding.
What is bold?
Yeah. Okay, what do we got? John 3:16? I think we all know that one, right? We could
Yeah.
probably recite it. couldn't
Yeah,
we?
we could.
Did you memorize it for confirmation?
Oh, yeah.
Before that.
Maybe we'll just read it. I don't know if we dare read it together.
We
We're
all
probably all
do
different
it.
versions.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to read
Recite
it
it
together.
Recite it.
Yeah,
Okay,
so we try.
probably have
Okay.
to
we
sing.
should read.
Okay, so John 3:16. We'll just try it and see what it happens.
Okay, this would be like the Tower of Babel.
Yeah, exactly. So, for
This
God
is
so
how
loved
much
the
more
world
love
that he gave his one and only Son,
So that
that
everyone
whoever
one
believes in him
No one
should
knows
not
how.
perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him.
How bad it was. He came to help to put the world right again.
Okay, Harley. You're so funny. Okay, let's see. Where are we up to? Marsha, are we up to you? Okay.
One can't go to a large game of any sort without seeing someone holding up a placard that says John 3:16. One need not even be a Christian to know that this Bible verse says, God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish, but may have eternal life. But some time back, I finally saw someone waving a poster that read John 3:17. That verse reads, Indeed, God did not send the Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. The word saved is related to the Greek word soteria, meaning health, healing, and wholeness. In other words, Jesus came into the world to bring it health, healing, and wholeness. And as followers of Jesus, we are the means through which that salvation can be accomplished. We can be bearers of health, healing, and wholeness. Now,
I just think of the song God so loved the world, that's like, that tune goes.
Yep, that one.
When, especially that verse, send the.
Shall we pray? Thank
Thank you, ever loving God, for gathering us together. Empower us with your words, your spirit, and your Easter promise, that we might be ambassadors of your love in word and deed, even now. Amen.
Especially.
Especially now.
That's what I would say, especially now. Right?
do you want these for the Care Center?
Oh, if you want, or if you want, yeah.
We'll get it eventually, because I'd like to read the other articles.
Say goodbye, everybody. Say bye.
Bye.
Say bye, everyone. See you next month.